Hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of a 2-part video series about Trump's executive orders surrounding transgender people. So if you haven't watched the video right before this, go to my page, watch the previous video. So we are talking about, we're on to my analysis of what has been going on with legislation, government, etc., surrounding trans and non-binary people. So the executive order Trump issued in January, recognizing only two sexes, in its title declares it's protecting women from gender ideology extremism. So I'm going to get into all of this. Doctors, researchers, and all major medical organizations say Donald Trump was wrong about this. There are not only two genders. We already know this from research and evidence, and mainly the existence of trans, non-binary, and intersex people. We exist. So the only extreme ideology that's present here is the denial of what we already know to be true. And to go further, this legislation assumes that everyone in the US follows one exact religion, when there are over 10,000 religions in the world. And 30% of the US population is religiously unaffiliated, meaning they're not religious. They're called the nones. And 10 to 13% of the US identifies as agnostic or atheist. Gen Z and millennials are more likely. 40% of Gen Z identifies as religiously unaffiliated. So I want to talk about the word biological truth, that term. The word transgender already recognizes biological truth. It recognizes that a person is born given one gender and later on identifies as another gender. So there's no denial of sex at birth in being transgender. I also want to address the language that's used by the right. Pam Bondi, who represents these cases in court, has used terms like mutilated children and warped ideology. Nancy Mace uses trans slurs out in public, in the open, to falsely claim that trans people were responsible for Charlie Kirk's death. They're calling trans women biological men. So this language is meant to dehumanize and demonize and get a fear reaction from their base. They're uneducated on gender, so they react with fear. They know that they can use the issue of trans rights to create a culture war because their base is uneducated on gender. The transphobic part comes in with the failure to recognize that there are more cisgender children that have these gender-affirming surgeries than there are trans people. That's discrimination. So what they're saying is these services are only inappropriate for a transgender person. They're perfectly fine for a cisgender person or a cisgender child. That's discrimination. They believe sports are only appropriate if there are no trans athletes. They believe bathrooms are only appropriate if no trans people are present. All of these claims are false. And the information, statistics on all of this stuff, it's available to anyone on the internet. Research, statistics, etc. But the MAGA base has been flooded with propaganda through social media echo chambers and religious cults like Turning Point. The number one virtue is not truth, it's loyalty. So even if they know a claim to be untrue, they stay loyal to the leader. In this case, the cult of MAGA, which is Donald Trump. But soon Donald Trump will be gone. He's gonna die. He doesn't look too good right now. And they'll replace him with someone else for their agenda. And they will use the same tactics to spread false information, disinformation, and spark fear in their base. This is the tactic they've used for decades. But trans people still have legal protections, which is why we're winning in court. The horrible accusations made against the entire trans community are just lies, and a lot of judges know this. Republicans have no valid argument against trans people other than a personal, hateful agenda that uses trans people in a political culture war. Trans identity is not political. We are here, we exist, and we should be able to defend ourselves without fear when false allegations like this are made. So the author of this article said Trump is melding medical ignorance with fantasy, and that is exactly what the Republican Party is doing. Nothing they're putting into legislation is backed by science, research, fact, evidence. They deny all of those things and just go with a personal feeling. That is radical. That is extreme. That is personal ideology. Trans identity is not a personal ideology. There's so many lies in what they have done, not just regarding trans people, but in all areas. And the reason they come for trans people first is because we are the smallest, most vulnerable community that exists. And even a lie like that from a politician can cause devastation in our community. That is weak. That's bullying. That's inhumane. That is the Republican Party. Thank you for listening. Like this video, leave your comments, share this, and I'll be back as soon as I can with more news. Thanks, guys.